The largest mass shooting murder of all time in one location was committed here in Kiev on the 29th to 30th of September 1941. This is what Babi Yar looks like today, but it looked very different in 1941. The topography changed completely after the massacre when Wehrmacht engineers blew up the walls of the ravine to hide the bodies. In 1943, the bodies were dug up and burned. Then after the war, there was a flood and then redevelopment. Nonetheless, one can still find the remains of a ravine on the site. 33,771 people were collected and murdered here in the space of less than 36 hours in the last 2 days of September 1941. What may be surprising is that the person responsible for this killing was not a hardcore Nazi racist, but a 67-year-old professional army officer brought out of retirement, Major General Kurt Eberhard. Kurt Eberhard was born on the 12th of September 1874 in Rottweil. Rottweil claims to be the oldest town in Baden Wurtemberg. Today, as one enters the town, there's a sign that says as much. On the 3rd of August 1892, the 17-year-old Eberhard joined the Field Artillery Regiment, the 1st Württemberg No. 13, named after King Karl. This was part of the Württemberg Army. He joined up in Ulm as a Fahnenjunker, an officer cadet. At that time, although Germany was united, the various countries that made up the German Empire, the Second Reich, still had their own armies and different rules applied, although of course in times of war they were under one command. The King Karl Regiment was set up provisionally on the 22nd of December 1873 after the unification of Germany, and on the 25th of June 1889 King Karl von Württemberg appointed himself Commander-in-Chief, which is why it bore his name. On the 18th of March 1893, Eberhard was promoted to Fahnenjunker, a higher officer cadet rank in the German and Austrian armies. He was commissioned as second lieutenant on the 25th of November 1893 and as first lieutenant on the 25th of February 1902. From October 1902 until July 1905, Eberhard attended the Prussian War Academy in Berlin. After returning to his main regiment on the 25th of February 1907, he became the adjutant of the 27th Field Artillery Brigade of the 2nd Royal Württembergers. Promoted to captain on the 25th of February 1908, he was then appointed as a battery commander on the 25th of July 1910 in the 4th Württemberg Field Artillery Regiment No. 65, which was then based in Ludwigsburg. Eberhard remained in this position until his transfer to the Field Artillery School on the 1st of October 1913. With the outbreak of the First World War, Eberhard returned to the 65th Field Artillery Regiment, resumed his position as battery commander and was deployed on the Eastern Front. After being promoted to major on the 27th of January 1915, he was given command of the 2nd Division of the regiment from the 4th of September 1916. On the 10th of April 1918, he was appointed commander of Field Artillery Regiment No. 501, in which he served on the Western Front. After the end of the war, he led the regiment back home, where it was demobilised in Minden on the 21st December 1918 and finally dissolved in June 1919. Eberhard was, however, unemployed for a very short time. He was accepted into the provisional Reichswehr and was initially employed from the 1st of July 1919 until the 1st of October 1920 as commander of the 5th Reichswehr Artillery Regiment. Competition for places in the army was tough. There were millions of experienced men seeking secure employment, and this is what the military offered. However, the terms of the Treaty of Versailles limited the German armed forces to 100,000 men. Eberhard was promoted to Lieutenant Colonel on the 18th of October 1920 and took command of the 2nd Baden Division of the Field Artillery Regiment in Ulm. He was appointed military commander of the city of Ulm on the 1st of April 1923 and promoted to colonel on the 1st of November 1923. On the 31st of March 1925, at the age of 50, Eberhard was relieved of his duties and retired from active service whilst being promoted Major General. The tradition of the German armed forces was to be politically neutral. Soldiers did not have the right to vote in the Weimar Republic. However, under the Nazis that changed. Hitler aimed to create what he would have termed a National Socialist Army. It would seem that Eberhard came over to share this opinion. Eberhard did not join the National Socialist Party until 1938 and received party membership number 5645459. On Hitler's 50th birthday, the 20th of April 1939, the 64-year-old Eberhard joined the SS, membership number 323045. He received the SS rank Standartenführer, roughly equivalent of colonel, which was lower than the military rank he held. The following year, he was appointed SS Oberführer, an SS rank that had no army equivalent. On the 9th of November 1942, he was advanced another rank to Brigadeführer of the Allgemeine SS, the General SS. Shortly before the start of the Second World War, on the 26th of August 1939, the 65-year-old Eberhard was reactivated into the army. However, he did not get a field command. Eberhard was assigned to the staff of the commander of the Rear Army area, where he headed the organisation of artillery units on the east bank of the Rhine. The Eberhard Artillery Staff, as it was called, following the custom of the time to use the commanding officer's name, was dissolved on the 7th of July 1940 following the victory in France. On the 13th of May 1941, he took over as commander of Feldkommandantur 195. The Feldkommandantur 195 was set up on the 29th of May 1941 in the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia with a view of being deployed to the occupied Soviet Union. The staff was subordinated to the commander of Army Group South. From this, the staff was deployed to the 454th Security Division in Kiev. Eberhard was appointed city commander in Kiev on the 26th of September 1941, and the staff was reorganized into the Kiev City Command on the 6th of October 1941. Kiev had been captured only a few days earlier in what, in my opinion, was the greatest military victory of all time. 650,000 Soviet prisoners were taken in a huge enveloping action. The army was followed on the 19th of September 1941 by an advanced detachment of the Sonderkommando 4A led by two Obersturmbannführers, August Hafner and Adolf Janssen. This demonstrated very clearly that the plan was to kill the Jews of the city as soon as possible. The excuse they used was that Red Army engineers had had the time to booby-trap a number of buildings in Kiev, which led to a number of deaths both amongst local civilians and German personnel. One of the explosions hit the rear headquarters of Army Group South on the 24th of September. On the 26th of September 1941, Eberhard met with the SS and police leader, SS Obergruppenführer Friedrich Jeckeln, the commander of Einsatzgruppen C, Otto Rasch and SS Standartenführer Paul Blobel, leader of Sonderkommando 4A of Einsatzgruppen C, and other SS functionaries such as SS Obersturmbannführer August Hafner, who gave an account of the meeting after the war. This meeting took place at the same Army Group South rear headquarters that had been bombed only 2 days earlier. There they decided that they would kill the Jews of Kiev and arranged how the killings would take place. Eberhard insisted at the meeting, "You must shoot them," and these shootings were to be done by those under the command of Rasch and Blobel, aided by various German police battalions. They did not know how many Jews were at that time in Kiev. It was thought that there were about 220,000 Jews in Kiev before the war, and they expected around 50,000 would still be living there then. How many would be killed? That they did not yet know. Eberhard reported to Berlin on the 28th of September 1941. The Wehrmacht welcomes measures and requests radical action. It seems as though Eberhard had the full agreement and permission of his superior, Walter von Reichenau. Berlin must have granted permission very quickly, as that very day posters went up around Kiev ordering Jews to report at a specific location near the train station, giving the idea that people would be moved out by rail. However, the poster shown here does have a curious factor in it. In German it says all Jews must. However, the word used in both Russian and Ukrainian is Židi, a negative word for Jews, something like Yids. The translation of the German Jude is Evrei in Russian. As I see it, the use of this negative term, the N word, when referring to Jews, could have two possibilities. Either the person or people doing the translation were showing here their own anti-Semitism, or alternatively, they may have used this language as a covert warning that nothing good was going to happen. If the latter, then it didn't work. The poster reads as follows from the Russian. All the Yids of the city of Kiev and its vicinity must appear on Monday the 29th of September 1941 by 8 in the morning at the corner of Melinkova and Dr. Rivskaya streets next to the cemetery. Bring documents, money and valuables, and also warm clothing, bed linen, etc. Any Yids that do not follow this order and are found elsewhere will be shot. Any citizens who enter the dwellings left by the Yids and help themselves to what they find there will be shot. The news spread very quickly as 33,771 people reported to the location mentioned in the proclamations. After passing a number of control points guarded by order police, Wehrmacht and local volunteer militia, where they had to deposit various items of their possessions or clothing, they came to a ravine where they were shot in batches. The Sonderkommando had been murdering people since the beginning of the war against the Soviet Union, so had by this time 3 months' practice in mass killing. However, never before and never again were they to murder so many people in one place. The killers expressed in a situation report how surprised they were that so many people had voluntarily turned up. They had expected 5,000 to 6,000 people, and not the 33,771 that presented themselves. Years later, Kurt Eberhard, a member of Sonderkommando 4A, described it in a court in Nuremberg. The victims had to lie down in the ravine with their face to the ground. There were 3 groups of shooters in the ravine with a total of around 12 shooters. The Jews who then followed would have to lie down on the corpses in the pit. The riflemen stood behind the Jews and shot them in the neck. Today I still remember the horror felt by the Jews who were able to look down at the corpses in the pit for the first time from the edge of the pit. Many Jews cried out loud with fright. You can't even imagine how nerve-wracking it was to do the dirty work down there. In a situation report of the 3rd of November 1941, the Reich Security Main Office, RSHA, praised the good cooperation with the Wehrmacht leadership, but criticised that in the Jewish question until recently there was no complete understanding amongst the subordinate Wehrmacht departments. Clearly Field Marshal Walter von Reichenau and Eberhard had done what they could to make the task of killing much easier. The site at Babi Yar continued to be used for mass murder throughout the period that Eberhard was city commander, and indeed beyond that time. Eberhard held on to his position as commander of the Feldkommandatur until the 30th of June 1942. At the beginning of July 1942, he was transferred to the Army Reserve and was retired at the end of November 1942. Shortly before his retirement from the Army, he received promotion in the SS, something he had not received from the Army over the past 19 years. Eberhard was arrested by the Americans in November 1945. He committed suicide in Stuttgart in prison on the 8th of September 1947, 4 days before his 73rd birthday. I hope you have found that interesting. I upload every Friday at 2000 hours Central European time, and I also upload at other times on other occasions. So if you'd like to know when I'm uploading, then please subscribe and ring the bell. Thanks for listening.